This this all stems from LinkedIn of all places. LinkedIn is one of those places that we were just discussing. I've been on for ages, like since school, because they tell you get on LinkedIn to get a job. I've never actually got a job from LinkedIn, FYI. Uh,
Same.
I did the profile, and when I actually started using LinkedIn, I looked at my profile and thought, I mean, none of it's wrong, but I'm never going to read through any of this, and most professionals are never going to care about most of this either. So I changed my profile. We was just discussing. I put MSc in my title because people on LinkedIn, for whatever reason, don't respond to people that either don't have MSc, PhD, doctor in their title, or put head coach of, or senior lecturer of, or pro UEFA whatever sport title. Essentially, I feel like verification on LinkedIn is your job title and your degree status. So if you don't have a degree status or a job title that looks important enough, you might
Does
not
it
get
relate
responses.
to like this specific context as well?
Yeah, yeah, as it
Like to
relates to
be
the
real,
context.
because I'm just thinking like if I'm thinking about my stuff, it's such a different world. Like because I follow a couple of
But I
it,
imagine your clients probably wouldn't be on LinkedIn looking for a coach.
no. So I would be looking more for like just this conversation has made me go, oh, this is interesting. Like the way I position my LinkedIn and what I talk about in LinkedIn would probably be very different if I was to actually use LinkedIn because I wouldn't be talking in the same way that I talk on Facebook, where my audience are, or any other platform in my emails. And like all of those platforms would work differently. This isn't for me hiring people, it's collaborators. Like for my unique context, it'd be who would I want to collaborate with and what would they want to hear?
I had a moment then because I've been posting a couple of the things that I've posted on LinkedIn, also on my Facebook, which you may
Mm,
have seen as well. Um, and it's so intriguing who responds on Facebook to a what I would class as LinkedIn post.
mm,
I I have tried to reach out to someone that I spoke to, what was it, third year uni, so 7 years ago. I reached out to them directly via email, via Instagram, multiple times, um, and I'd spoken to them for like 2 years. Like we worked together at a private school, and nothing, right? I put up this Facebook post about my experience and then coaching philosophy, and they respond. I'm like, right, okay. And then similar, like other coaches that I've engaged with various places in football and Barcelona when I was out for Freestyle Tramps, they also responded to the LinkedIn post, not the Facebooky coaching post. So the coaches that aren't on LinkedIn are responding to a LinkedIn style post on Facebook, which I
mm,
think just goes to show it's not the platform, it's the audience.
mm. That's so interesting because that would change how people would market. Like that is quite fascinating. Because if you think about it, a lot of what people do is just spray everywhere and pray.
Uh-huh.
Like it's just put it on every platform to the like, even my post recently was talking to my audience. Now I do have my people as audiences like followers on there, but they don't really respond.
Hmm. And I
So it's
think
interesting.
I think it's because I mean I know people say, "Oh, you need to market to your audience," but marketing to your like I said this in one of my posts, like being a coach is different from being a coach developer. Like
Mm,
you're coaching an athlete or you're coaching a coach. They are
yes.
very different things, very different skill sets, different experiences, etc., etc., etc. Yes, some skills transfer, but they are, broadly speaking, very different jobs. And when we are marketing, you could say I'm marketing to an audience, but if your audience isn't the type of audience that interacts or engages with posts because they are maybe doom scrolling on social media, they're not going to be the ones that are going to read through a long post. Or if they are the ones that are really busy doing loads of other stuff and they go on social media to chill out, they don't really want to be potentially reading through like coaches telling them what to do or how to do things. They might just be going, you know what, I just want to sit here and watch random videos to do something else. And so your target audience is on that platform, but the content that you're making isn't what the target audience is looking for.
Mm,
Which is the way that I've approached YouTube and why I've tried to shift YouTube because the videos that I've got views on hit a target audience that I don't really want to be talking to. They hit on
mm,
the tends to be younger athletes looking for the tips and tricks to get themselves to be pro. But I don't want to be talking to the 14-year-old football player that wants to become pro. I want to be talking to the 30-year-old coach of the 14-year-old football player that is trying to encourage him to win every game and say, actually, maybe this isn't the best way to be coaching." And so the shift of conversation adjusts.
mm. Yeah, I had a similar experience recently. So I recorded a podcast episode, and this was the first podcast episode I've done in a very long time where I just went, so I talk about ecological psychology in business. And it was like, cool, tell me all about that. I'm like, sweet. It's about behavior and how we behave in the world and how we interact with the world and
So
all of that
wait,
juicy stuff.
to clarify, this is you talking with someone else, not you talking
Mm.
on your own. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah, talking with someone else. And there was an entire episode, and we did touch on a broad spectrum of topics because, of course, we did. Because, and it was interesting how, like, they commented afterwards, this was quite a messy episode. I'm like, was it? I was quite intrigued by the idea of it being a messy episode. Well, we covered so many topics. I'm like, I know, they all related. Like, they were all, because everything is behavior. So if everything is behavior, everything relates. And it was a really cool episode. It was fun. It was the first one that I've done in a while where it was not about a certain thing, but also was. It was good. I
Would,
enjoyed
would you
it.
say would you say our conversation is about a certain thing?
No, the conversation, it was a lot more like this.
Okay. More of a conversation back and forth, both being intrigued about the other person's perspective,
Yes.
rather than an interview.
Yes.
I enjoy that as someone involved in the conversation because it doesn't feel like an interview. But as a listener, I don't know. Sometimes
Ooh.
I like the structure, but get frustrated other times when I just want to I want to hear the next little bit of that point. I don't want it to end there. The issue is, those sorts of conversations tend to be an hour long.
Yeah. We managed to get about I think it was about 30 minutes. So
Okay.
we stayed fairly
Condensed.
constrained, but yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, let's transition then into our agenda. The
No.
agenda. Yeah, I'm going to
Look at
call it an
this. We have
agenda.
an agenda.
Yeah, it's an agenda of I'm going to go through the posts like as they happened because there's different points that I want to bring up. And it all relates to what we've just discussed, by the way, those listening. So on LinkedIn, I'm engaging with, talking with, speaking with, debating with various people from like sports coaching fields. And someone that they're a football coach, they're a head coach, they put, I'm not going to read the entire post because it's fairly long. They put, "Let the game be the teacher" is not a phrase I'm a fan of. That's what they said. And I was intrigued by that. And before we go too far in, let the game be the teacher. I think there are quite a few assumptions in there, just as is.
Mm.
What words stick out to you?
It feels like that, like, it bugs me because it's putting, like, when you say let the game be the teacher, the first thing I'm thinking of is okay, this doesn't, there's something missing from the conversation. Like, it's just a statement which misses something. It's like, okay, fine, let the game be the teacher, but what? Why isn't the person playing the teacher? Because that's how I would see it. Immediately, it's like, no, the game's not
Wait,
teaching anything. The
how
game,
can I know what they're going to say? They would say, how can the person playing be the teacher? They're learning.
Because because that's the entire point. Don't ask a guitarist who was self-taught the entire time. How I taught myself guitar through playing guitar, through the act of actually doing the thing.
But you weren't teaching yourself.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. That was exactly what I. Then what was teaching me? Then what was teaching me? Like
This relates
my
to some of the
guitar?
points later on.
My guitar was teaching me? No, I was teaching me. Why can't I be the teacher?
Okay, so to me, like the word teacher there is where you're focused.
Mm,
Yeah. Teacher is a point that will come up.
mm.
Any other word in there that makes you,
The whole sentence together bugs me. Like
yeah,
I'm trying very hard to look at another word, but it's just the sentence. It feels like they're looking at the ceiling and going, "Look, a bird." Like it's nonsensical. It feels nonsensical as a sentence. It feels so misdirected and like let the game be the teacher. I'm like,
it
it's not
lacks
a phrase.
context.
Yeah, it lacks context, it lacks nuance. It just feels like I'm going to make this statement because it feels hot takey.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, which
It,
it probably is.
but it's a buzzword. It's a
Mm.
buzz phrase in coaching. Oh, let the game be the teacher. Let the game be the teacher. But let. Okay, why are you letting it? If you've
Why are
designed
you
it,
allowing?
yeah, if
Why
you've
can't they
designed it,
just
you're not letting. You've designed the thing. And even if you're just creating a space where you have X amount versus Y amount, you're not letting that happen. You've created an environment for that to happen because I assume you've said, hey, do you want to meet up at this field at this time? So you're not letting that game happen. You're creating that game through communication before the event. So just the first word, let, I'm like, okay, what are you letting happen? The game, what is the game? Is that 11v11 on one pitch? Is that 9v11, 10v11? Is that a big goal, a small goal? Like, what are the rules? Are we using nine-a-side football rules? Are we using futsal rules? Are we using like Brazilian football rules? Are we you looking at like professional referees? Like, what is the game? Where are the constraints? What are the rules? It's not mentioned at all. This is what I mean by lack of context. And then why is it the teacher? Why are there not multiple teachers?
which there would be because the student's the teacher and then other students are teaching and then of course you're there, which in itself you're teaching, you're educating
Teaching, teacher.
yeah,
Teacher
exactly.
is a defined noun thing.
Versus a verb teaching. You are teaching yourself. You're not the teacher. Ah. Mm.
Precisely. So that's the way that I would pick apart that. Like I would want it's not picking apart saying, oh, you're wrong when I'm right. It's saying you're lacking so much context with that small phrase that I need more information. You need to tell me more. You need to explain more for me to be able to respond. And they do go on to say a lot of words, but they don't really explain enough meaning for me to grasp what it is that they're actually trying to get across. So later on in the post, they say two simple things every coach can learn to do to enhance learning. A clear, concise, consistent message to guide the teams or individuals' focus so that they are focused on learning the same thing.
Why do they need to learn the same thing? That presumes, for one, that every single student learns exactly the same way, which has been proven so many fucking times that it's not. But okay, whatever. Two, why?
Like, clear and concise, well, yeah, okay, but clear and concise assumes it's an instruction for a learning outcome.
Which,
Okay.
yeah, how do you know that the learning outcome that you wish to you present is the same as what they're going to present? How do you know that, like, to guide the teams or individuals' focus? Well, how do you know what their focus? Do you ask them what their focus is and then guide them? Then, well, no, you don't because you can't because you're telling everyone to do the same fucking thing.
And even if you do say, hey, focus on the ball, they might not actually be focused on the ball. They might be focused on something else you'd said before, like make sure you kick it with your laces. And so now they're thinking of their laces, even though you told them to focus on the ball because of a point that you made previously, because that was the instruction at the time. And that's all of the other comments that you've made in that system, in that behavioral setting
Mm.
environment that you're in throughout the session, which gets
And
onto.
also, like, if I think about it from my perspective, if I was to go and kick a ball around and I'm told to think, well, I don't really care about that. I'm working on this thing right now. Like,
This is my focus. I don't care what you say.
like, I want to figure out how to shoot a goal. Like, I want to be the popular kid. I want to be the one who did the goal, and I want to practice shooting so that I can win. I want to win. Like that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on where I'm kicking them. I will, if I can kick that ball into that goal and I win, and people cheer and chuck me up in the air and blah 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 blah, then that's what I care about. So I'm gonna. That's my focus. And yet, another person who maybe has that like want to improve on every single aspect, that they may be focusing on the the laces. Or maybe they're focusing on whether they're what they're going to have for that also assumes a linear focus, which is also a problem because I am not ever focusing on one thing at a time ever.
When you said win there, I immediately I'm like, yes and no. Win defined by the culture, defined by the behavioral setting,
Oh
because
yeah,
yeah, because you said win, score the goal. I'm like, oh, well, actually, winning could be something completely different. Like winning could
but
be
also I would only be thinking of winning as scoring a goal. If I scored a goal, that would be a win condition for me because I scored a goal because I let's assume I've never done it before, so that's something that I want to do. So I would have achieved a goal, a goal
is a
by
win.
scoring
It's
a
a win
goal.
condition without any other behavioral conditions or constraints added in via the coach.
Mm,
And that is where the coach can coach you without talking to you at all.
mm,
If they create a game that isn't necessarily a match that doesn't have goals in, but you know what the goal condition is. And by
mm,
goal condition, I mean target. So maybe dribble through a line of cones and the ball can't go outside of it. If the goal is to get the ball to the other end without it going like outside of the cones, and you can do that and that's celebrated, now you have found success. Now you've achieved the goal. Now you've won,
mm.
but the coach hasn't said anything to you. The coach hasn't said anything. You've watched other people. Oh, that's the target. And then you've seen the coach celebrate when the other person did it. The coach
Mm.
hasn't instructed you. The coach hasn't told you what to do. You've observed the constraints in the environment, in the behavioral setting. You've done it. And then you have an expectation to win, to see success.
Yeah,
And if the coach then mimics that and like celebrates that you did it, great. But the coaching happened before they actually said anything.
yeah.
I'm going to labor that point because it comes up as I mean you've read it through, but yeah, and then the second point, the second simple thing every coach can learn is timely suggestions, interventions to enhance a player's desire and ability to learn the focus of the session.
Once again, you are assuming that there is a singular focus on the session, which I'm going to keep going on about because that does my fucking head in. Because that's that
Learning outcome one, two, and
like
three.
yeah, but I don't care about your learning outcomes. I care about what I want to do, and if I want to do is to appear to be like I'm doing something right, if we use what you were saying just then I will want to score a goal because scoring a goal is part of the game, and the game rules of the game allow me to do that thing, and that means I will do that thing. Like, well, why? These are useless. These
He's he
they're
says He says, don't get me wrong, allow them to play, to explore, make mistakes and decisions, give the time and space for learning process to take effect. But you're constraining that by the 2 points that you say above. So why would you say two opposing things? Like, to me, the
mm,
sentence after point two tells me that I think he recognizes that a lot of people aren't going to like it because they don't agree with it, and he's trying to like say, oh yeah, but we're actually doing this stuff as well. It's kind of like saying, hey, we need to win this match, but we're player centered. Like we're helping everyone, but we need to win the match. Like no, you're one
guide
or
the
the other.
like I'm reading ahead, but it bugs me. But as coaches, guide the focus as they play and learn to time your suggestions, interventions well to well to up to
to up
up
the
the effort
effort.
and energy when it dips through annoyance or frustration, to supercharge the energy and effort as they experience learning.
There's a lot of buzzwords.
It's just annoying.
The timely suggestions and interventions emphasizes the point that they've made, which is coaching is you telling someone where their focus needs to be, you
That's not coaching.
instructing them to do XYZ thing to achieve a goal. Like,
That's a teacher. That's
but
education.
the point at the start when we were discussing like a teacher, like
Yeah.
you are doing the same thing to yourself,
Mm. It's just
which when we get to like the next point, well, my point here, I asked them to clarify what the game is because I felt it's important. Um, and then moving down a little bit, where are we? In the same scenario, yeah, because they were saying that a teacher can't be the game. Like the game isn't a teacher.
I don't disagree. The game isn't a teacher, it is teaching.
Hmm. So how would you define teacher? Because they've said teaching doesn't equal learning, and
What?
you don't need to be taught to learn.
Mm. There are so many delightful assumptions in that. To be a teacher, a person who teaches, we're all teachers then. Like, by that definition, we're all teaching. We teach ourselves. Like, I teach myself everything. Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't teach themselves how to do things. That doesn't even make sense. It's annoying. It's an arbitrary constraint that doesn't even make sense because the
It's a
entire
linguistic constraint.
it's a linguistic constraint. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Well,
It's a point.
teaching doesn't equal learning. Well, it doesn't, depending on your definition. But
Mm,
teaching and learning have the same behavioral processes,
mm,
so they are different words that mean the same thing, in my opinion. And
yeah, same.
you don't need to be taught to learn, okay? You don't need to
Then,
be taught
mm,
by a person telling you instructions to learn something. Like I don't know what they're trying to get at. I think they're saying you don't need a person to tell you to do something for you to learn how to do the thing, which I agree.
yes.
But something, someone is still teaching, as in there is an intention being driven in some way, either by the constraints of the environment or the behavioral setting, which arguably is constraints of the environment, but the behavioral setting and expectations you have walking into a room. Like, if you walk into a room and you're shouting and everyone else is silent, you are being taught by the environment to shut up. Like everyone else is silent, and now everyone looks at you because you're making noise and no one else is making noise. The environment is the teacher. For me, that is what it is. The behavioral setting, the environment there is teaching you that the expectation is for you not to be shouting in that environment.
Mm,
Same as when you walk around the shops and you start shouting, like no one is teaching you to be quiet. But there will probably be people eventually that say, hey, can you like not? Or you'll get really weird looks, and the looks are people teaching you. They're not instructing you, they're not telling you what to do, they're just looking at you weird. Like, why are you shouting in a shop? Like,
mm.
that's not expected behavior. So is someone looking at you weirdly teaching?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think so.
yeah. It makes sense. It
So
just makes sense.
so the person in the shop that's looking at you weird, are they a teacher? If they are teaching you.
Yeah.
That's my argument, and they say no. They say no. Um, I would say, so this is what they said. I would say a teacher would be someone or something intentionally trying to help somebody learn a skill or knowledge using their skill and experience. Well, you can't behave without using your own skill and experience. So I think the last point is redundant. I would say a teacher would be someone or something. So something has intentionality. I would argue that something could be an environment.
Mm,
The environment
yes.
and behavioral setting. Does a behavior setting has intentionality? Yes, because other organisms are present, and the system functions because of the intentional organismic behavior within it,
Yeah.
i.e., walking around a shop, not shouting.
Mm,
But previously they've said that the environment, the game, isn't a teacher. But they've said if something it has intentionality. Later on, they then do say that an example of something would be AI, e-learning, online courses are examples, things created intentionally to teach someone something. Um, AI is something created by organisms and information, so it's still an environment.
mm.
It's
It
still
is.
environmental
AI is an
constraints.
environment. This
Yeah,
is something that I've been having a lot of fun
it's
with
it's an
recently.
environmental constraint created
Yeah.
through behavioral settings of
Yeah.
programmers in the past. Online courses, literally the same thing. Is a person giving information in the past and then created in a way to encourage certain behavior afterwards. But it's the same as when you turn up to your second football session. You've been there before, you know what to expect or roughly what to expect, so you're going to behave in certain ways. You're not going to turn up to a second football session with no football boots, no shin pads, no drink, no water, and run in there with paints and arts. Like, that's not going to happen. Like, you've been given expectations in behavior, so the something that was an intentional was the culture, how it felt to be in that system.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's there. And then trying to help somebody to learn a skill.
See, there is still this externalization of it, which is really still bugging me. Maybe it's just the context that it's within. But like there is still this someone has to teach you, someone has to instruct you, someone else has to say this thing to you for you to be able to do. No, that's just not true. Like my entire experience of building a business, like learning guitar, learning piano, singing, every single thing that I've done has been completely self-directed. Yes, I've had teachers to help me with particular things. Yes, I've hired people to help me with specific skills, but I could develop them. But they were almost like, tell me what I'm doing wrong, which is based on a perceived notion that there is a certain way to do a thing, but there isn't. And a lot of what I taught myself, I can still go back. I barely play guitar anymore, but when I go pick up a guitar, I can still play basically everything I used to play. Can I play as fast as I used to? No. Does that matter? Definitely not, because I never wanted to play fast. That wasn't important for me. That wasn't interesting for me. Could I then develop the skill to go faster? Yeah, of course I can. And I know exactly how to do it. Then I can self-direct my learning and like, right, cool, this person can play fast. How do you play fast? Tell me like how you do that. What do you do? And then I will go, oh, well, here's what I would do then. Okay, cool. I noticed this thing and these things mean these things. And this is probably the most direct relation to sport because musician is physical movement as well. But the same thing of like running a business. Like you learn the skills and things to run a business and then you adapt them and change them based on how you work. And guess what that is? Learning,
Yeah.
teaching
Well,
yourself because you can.
I think that the point in that sentence, trying to help somebody learn a skill,
They're not learning
it,
one skill, they're learning multiple skills. That you don't just
yeah,
learn one thing when you learn a thing. You
there,
learn
there's lots of categories and boxes of words that they're using, which come with tons of assumptions, which
mm,
is why I I mean, it's why we've said before, those that follow ecological psychology, take an ecological approach, are very particular about the words they choose to use because there are assumptions that are brought with them. Uh, and that entire sentence, like I would say a teacher would be someone or something intentionally trying to help somebody to learn a skill or knowledge using their skill and expertise, is linear causality. You do A, then B, then C. Multi-causality isn't really encompassed there. Non-linear causality is certainly not in there. And non-obvious is certainly not in there, which ecologically speaking, non-linear, non-obvious multi-causality is what we choose to follow. And what's interesting is most of the other approaches from cognitive psychology, I say modern cognitive psychology, also agree that it's non-linear, non-obvious multi-causality. How they go about approaching that differs, but they still agree on causality most of the time, depending on who you're talking to. That is linear causality. That
Mm.
is linear pedagogy. That is outdated, and that is what he's saying he's not doing.
Which he is.
Ye- But this is where, I mean, there was a study on rugby coaches that was shared fairly virally on LinkedIn recently. There are lots of coaches that say they are player centered, that say they are doing non-linear pedagogy and say they are doing all these things, but in practice they're not. And when you actually have a discussion with them, they're not. And this coach isn't, which isn't a problem. It's just I don't think that they are recognizing that. And not recognizing that they are not doing what they say they're doing is poor behavioral integrity, I would argue. And being hypocritical is another word for it.
Yeah.
Uh, which, as a coach developer, they are a coach developer, they are a head coach, they work with other coaches. As a coach developer, to not to be able to recognize that, I think is an issue.
Mm.
And as other coach developers look into these conversations, I feel they should be able to recognize the different approaches and recognize actually I'm not that. And I'm okay not being that because I follow this thing instead. But you can't be
Yeah.
both. You can't be red and blue at the same time. It's not possible.
Mm. Mm. No.
Reference to Matrix pills there. If you didn't get it. Um, now I followed up and said, for me, a teacher is a person with a school teacher qualification. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm. The qualification bit, having been inside lots of qualifications and seeing the back end of that, I'm like, no, I'm not sure
So
whether.
when you think of a teacher, what do you think of?
Mm. So, s- in this context, it would be anyone who is teaching.
But that's different
How's it different? I don't think it's different. For me, it's not.
because a coach could be teaching, a mentor could be teaching, a
Yeah,
facilitator could be teaching. So lots of other like categorized nouns could be teaching.
yes,
So it doesn't have to be a teacher teaching.
no. But at that point, they are a
But a
teacher.
mentor isn't a teacher, I
Hmm.
don't think.
Hmm.
A facilitator isn't a teacher.
But they do teach.
Uh-huh. But do teach and engage in teaching are processes, the behaviors,
Yes.
rather than descriptions of a thing.
And the phrase teacher is stupid.
It's a word that we use to communicate, so there's going to be different meanings with different people. And if you disagree,
Hmm.
fair.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, for me, a teacher is someone who is teaching at that moment in time. It's not a teacher
at that
is not
moment in
just,
time, what's that mean?
well, we're using measurements for actual measurements here. At that moment, during that period of time, they are a teacher
Doing what?
teaching.
Yeah, so if I'm standing here
Hmm.
Am I teaching? If I'm observing,
Mm,
am I teaching?
no, no.
So if I'm observing my coaching session, am I coaching?
Mm, no.
So when am I coaching?
I'm not sure whether you like coaches. I don't know whether they actually coach. They facilitate coaching in the individual. Like
So
for
when am I
me,
teaching? As a coach, when am I teaching?
most of the time, actually, teachers aren't teaching. It's the student that's teaching themselves. So they are the teachers. They teach themselves.
But when am I teaching, coaching
Mm.
as an educator? Do I have to be talking? Do I have to be communicating to be teaching?
Well, communicating and talking are different. So, do you have to be communicate? You're always communicating, body language. Like, there is always communication.
So if I'm observing,
So, yeah, you probably are teaching during observing because there is body language that you are giving. Yes.
the act of me walking in a room, potentially, I would argue yes. Um, the act of me walking in the room and participants being aware of my presence in that
Mm,
room means that I am now in their system of learning,
mm.
which means I could be coaching, educating, teaching, whatever you want to call it.
That's the problem. That because the labels are so, there
Yeah.
are so many boxes.
So if I can be coaching,
Mm,
teaching by
mm,
just standing and observing, am I a
mm.
coach if I am observing?
Well, that depends on the perception of the individual. Because let's say, for example, like you have a group of people, and let's say someone's never met you.
Mhm.
They don't know you're the coach. Let's say you are away for a bit and your other coach is there instead, and they're used to that coach. They shout there. You walk in, they may not at first see you as teaching, observing, coaching, or anything. They would see you as a person there. But then it's due to the being taught by the other participants at the trampoline place, or maybe your other coach who turns to you and talks to you as a coach, that then is teaching this new person, oh, you're a coach.
Or
So they've taught them.
just wearing the orange top with the
Yeah.
Eastbourne trampoline sometimes. My dad goes and he wears an Eastbourne top because he's an adult wearing a top. People think he's a coach.
Oh, yeah.
He's not. Like he's not a coach because he doesn't have the qualification, but people think he's a coach. And so the qualification is how I would define the thing of a coach. But being
Hmm.
involved in the coaching, you don't need the qualification.
So with that, do you think all coaches should be qualified?
If we're going to say like what is a coach, I would say a coach is a person that has past experience in a coaching qualification.
Hmm. So by your definition, I would not be a coach.
If you don't have a formal coaching qualification, you can still be involved in coaching
Hmm.
because
That's interesting.
because you can be good at coaching without a qualification. You can
Yes.
also be bad at coaching with a qualification.
Which is often the case.
Yes, and that so I've said in the point for me, a teacher is a person with a school teacher qualification.
Mm,
Teaching, learning, coaching are all processes that happen at different scales of experience. If the person was aware of me observing, I'm part of that system of teaching, learning, coaching, which is what we've just discussed. Our level of significance fluctuates and depends on how we measure our impact, but I think we are still part of the process. So the significance of our actions changes.
mm,
So I could be the coach in the room, and I could be part of the coaching process, but my significance could be extremely small because I might be on the other side of the room watching someone
mm.
else. and they are learning. But they are
Mm.
learning in an environment that I've helped facilitate because I set up the trampolines, I got
Yes.
everyone there at the same time, etc., etc. So I'm part of the macro system and I'm still coaching them, but my influence, my significance on them in that scale, at that moment, at that time, in that time scale is greatly reduced. That's the way I view it.
Mm.
I can see you're wrestling with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me,
Obviously, this is a lot of philosophy, and this is the sort of stuff that I wish was on coaching courses, but it's
yeah,
not.
but it's not.
It's not discussed.
Um,
Yeah, so for you,
for me, yes, and I think a lot of the focus is so on coaches versus the coaching. Like in the business world, you hire a coach to tell you what to do, which is no,
fair.
no. Whereas, as as a client said to me once, you're actually a coach, not just a coach, because two coaches change the entire relationship between that. I'm like, so interesting that the coach. But that part of that, it wasn't, even though I have coach and coaching on all of my social media stuff and I have that everywhere, it wasn't until like I was still perceived as a technical coach. So there was a
Why aren't
piece
you a
before that.
teacher? Why don't you put teacher on your socials?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Because I don't just see, I would see myself as a technical teacher versus like a
Why not
technical
mentor?
coach. Well, all of them. I'm all of them all at the same time at the
Yeah.
same
So
moment.
why pick one?
Why? Because we have very limited characteristics and the constraint of the environment does not afford me to put all of them.
Yes. So you've picked one in specific, but why coach? Why coach over teacher, over mentor?
Because that's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's because coach is probably the. I think I see coaching as all of them. Like to me,
But
as a
isn't teaching all
coach,
of them?
well, they're all of them. It's just coach is the one that people understand easier
But why do they understand it easier?
because it's more common in the business environment.
Maybe. I would argue people use coach because other people assume teacher has qualification to it, or they will assume school teacher. If
Hmm.
you were to look at a random profile online and they say teacher, are you going to think they're a life teacher? Or are you going to think they're a school
No, that's
teacher?
true. I would probably think they were a qualified teacher.
Whereas if you see coach, I imagine your first question is coach of what?
Mm.
Not, oh, you're a school teacher, and then the person goes, oh, no, 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 I'm a teacher of music. Like, you don't have to like clarify that.
That's true.
Whereas
And even when
coaching,
I was a teacher, like when I did music, I was a peripatetic teacher. I was a teacher.
hmm. But I imagine if you put like teacher on your profile, the assumption is you're teaching at a school. So the question would be, oh, do you teach at primary school or secondary school? Not, oh, are you a music teacher? Or an activity teacher or a life
Yeah, that's
teacher?
true.
Whereas
Mm.
coach, because in the UK at least, and normally around the world, it's not a recognized profession,
Yeah.
they just go, oh, would you coach then? It's just this thing that anyone can do because there's no qualification attached to it because it's not a recognized profession across society. It is in the minority of coach developers, it's a recognized profession, but there's not enough
Yeah.
of us to make an impact. And so, coach,
Mm.
you just slap it on anything and say, yeah, I'm a coach. I coach anything and all this and that, which is why. I use qualifications as
The
a
teaching. Yeah.
yeah, for teaching to help bring recognition to the profession because teaching, yes, is a process you can do, but a teacher is a profession. It's a recognized
Mm.
profession that has expectations, qualifications, and the standards that you should uphold.
Mm.
And I think a coach is the same.
Mm.
I don't like that qualification is the way that society has decided to recognize professions because I think you can be a very good coach without a qualification, as mentioned before. But when you look at those words, the meaning behind those words, most of the time when you say coach, could mean a dad that's done a weekend course or someone that's spent the last 10 years in academia trying to understand the intricacies of the science behind how humans behave and develop. Both of those are put on the level stool. That to
Yeah,
me
that's
is
crazy.
not fair.
Mm.
Which all stems from like, oh, is the game a teacher? Is the game a teacher? By my definition, no, the game isn't a teacher, but the game does a lot of teaching. So if you were
Mm.
to define things, yes, the game is a teacher, but it's not an organism teacher that happens to be a human organism and so isn't or can't be qualified. It's not the
Mm.
profession.
So teacher is almost the profession versus the thing you're
I
doing. Yeah.
that's the way I see it. I would say a
Yeah.
teacher, a teacher is someone in the teaching profession ish in that context, in that sentence, but the game is a teacher in that there are standards of the game that's upheld.
Mm.
Because if the game doesn't have any goals or any lines, it's not actually football anymore. Now it's just running
Mm.
around a field.
Yeah.
If you put a ball in there and they're using their feet, well, maybe it's football, but maybe it's rugby. Because if they can
Depending
use
on
their
what the
hands as
ball looks
well.
like. Yeah.
But if you go back in time, rugby started with a spherical ball.
Huh, I did not know that. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, rugby started with a spherical ball that, well, actually, it started with an egg thing that people had to get from one side of a town to the other side of the town, and you just, however you can do it. That's like people got killed trying to get this object from one side of the town to the other side of the town, and then private schools realized actually, you know what, we should probably stop people killing each other, getting this object to the other side. So they started adding in rules, and so they were carrying things and they pushing and shoving and everything over, and then it decided some people decided, I think it was at Eton School, they decided, you know what, let's use our feet and no hands. But they were still pushing and punching people onto the floor, so you'd have like one person in the middle of a group like kicking the ball, and the other people around them were like pushing and punching everyone away to stop them from getting to help this person with the ball dribble the ball to the goal to kick it in. Like that's how football started from rugby. Like
That is, I did not know that.
yeah, unless you're really involved in sport, you probably wouldn't. But yeah, there's a mini documentary series on Netflix. I think. I think it's uh, the football game, the game of football, something like that. And it is sort of like a documentary, but like Netflixified version of the story. Uh, but yeah, so even there, you're like, okay, the game, the rules of the game have standards which uphold whether it's a teacher or not, and whether it's teaching X thing or Y thing. Um, and even teaching in itself, I imagine most people assume it's linear causality. I give you an instruction, you learn a thing,
Yeah.
which is an assumption made throughout the language of our species. I've been watching Human on BBC iPlayer. I think it's BBC iPlayer, maybe ITVX, one of the others. But it's about the evolution of humans, the human species, and how communication is a huge part of it. And you're like, yes, but communication and language has a lot of limitations, a lot of
Mm.
affordances, but a lot of limitations with the way that we assume one word means one thing, because it doesn't. It has multiple meanings in multiple contexts depending on how it's used, especially when you bring in tonality and the way that it's communicated,
Yeah.
which which is why these conversations are so much fun.
Yeah.
So, in this context, are either of us teachers or coaches?
Well, yeah. In a way, yeah. Well, no, because we don't have a well, you have a qualification, but your qualification is just in trampoline. So how do you measure the qualification? Like, if you have any qualification, are you just only a trampoline coach?
I also have qualifications in football, handball, athletics, and various other sports, and I have a sports coaching degree. But we'll just stick with the trampoline coach
Okay,
for the
fine.
sake of
You have a
argument.
sports coaching. So that means you can only talk about sports coaching.
No, because of the syllabus in my sports coaching degree, because it covers sports science and it also covers education inside of school settings. So it doesn't cover the curriculum. So if I was to be in a school curriculum environment, coaching, teaching, whatever you want to put there, specific points on those tests.
Mm,
But again, that's where the definitions fluctuate.
mm.
Because you look at substitute teachers. Substitute teachers, are they qualified to teach all the subjects? Primary school teachers, are they qualified to teach all the subjects? Yeah, but is there, as I mentioned in my comment, influence, the significance? Where was the sentence? Is it this one or the one before? Our level of significance fluctuates and depends on how we measure our impact. But if we, th but I think we are still part of the process. But yeah, so and side tangent for a second. This is why I'm so particular about the words I choose to use in these responses,
Mm,
because they are applicable across the board.
mm.
Our level of significance fluctuates and depends on how we measure our impact. As we're discussing now, it depends on how we measure the impact on the lesson or the test or the context, which is why Coate and Gilbert's definition of effective coaching in specific coaching contexts, like those few words right at the end of the definition, are really important and really significant. Um,
Mm. Yeah.
so coming back to the question, do you think either of us or both of us are coaches in this context or teachers in this context?
Yes and no.
Well, of course. Like I when I ask a question, there are always multiple answers.
Mm,
So this could be interesting to hear a perspective on actually. When I ask a question, I'm not expecting an answer. I'm
mm,
expecting exploration of solutions.
mm.
And so when I don't get an exploration of solutions and I get an answer, I then rephrase the question to try and encourage more exploration of solutions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Um,
Yeah. Okay. So,
I've always done this, by the way, and I've just realized I've never actually mentioned that to you. So when I ask you a question, you give me an answer. I'm always in the back of my head. I'm like, all right, okay, how do I get him to explore or get them to explore like different ways to well, explore the solutions to the question that I posed. Um,
yeah, I
Unless it
didn't
is
think.
a very closed question, it's like yes or no answer,
Mm.
which I very rarely do.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had you ever do a closed answer, closed question with one answer, because that would be
It,
pointless.
well, no, no, drastically disagree there. I ask, was that better or worse? Like than the one before, and they will
Mm.
say better or worse. Once
Mm.
they've given that closed answer, I can now ask them a question to explore the potential solutions as to why it was better or worse. So I use
Mm.
a closed question so I can constrain the potential solutions for the next question.
Ah.
Some people would argue this is overthinking,
Oh yeah, absolutely, because it is.
but when you talk about overthinking, how much is over? Like, where's the line of over?
And how much is that? When do you underthink?
Exactly. You've heard this
And can
before.
you underthink? Is it possible to underthink
Yeah, be
things?
dead.
Yeah.
Because then you're not thinking. Which, potentially, are you overthinking? I'm alive, so yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, so explore the solutions to my question. Are either of us or both of us coaches?
Well, are we qualified coaches? You, yes, in the
Co-
specific
In the
scenarios
various
that
in
you
the
are
various
in
courses I've completed.
the various courses that you've taken. Me, no. Like I have not done a coaching qualification. But then, even if you think about that, like if I look at coaching qualifications, I have a certificate in Gestalt, like foundational Gestalt stuff. So actually, yes, I am a Gestalt coach, but also no at the same time because we if one business coaching, the only way that that is qualified, and I would really use that very loosely, is because someone's taught someone a methodology and they're following that exact methodology. A lot of coaches, the business coaching qualifications are not actually coaching. You're instructing people to run a business in a certain way. There is that instruction of you will do this way. Then again, you also did that with trampoline. Like it was like this is how you coach trampoline. You do it this way, this way, this way, and this way. So maybe it is.
That's what the courses were.
Yeah.
And I disagreed with the courses a lot.
Yes. Yeah. It's been a thing I've explored for a long time because I could go and do a training. I could become a qualified coach. I could go and become a qualified Gestalt coach. Why though? Is always the question that comes up for me. Why? Because often people like, and then you have ICF coaching, like the International Coaching Federation. There are executive coaches. There is executive coaching qualifications, which I could probably go and do because I would be fairly good at it because of all the experience I've gained. But why?
So the qualification does what?
Well, it does two things. One, it puts a label on something, a clean cut label. This person acts in this way, follows these principles, and thinks this way. So it gives that
Well, they passed the
presume
test at the
they
time.
passed the test, they ticked the boxes, they tick certain boxes so they do things in certain ways. So there's that. And then there is also no that there's also that feeling of, oh, this person knows what they're talking about, but also half the time they don't. So it's not very useful in many ways, but it's also has a bunch of assumptions assigned to it.
For me, I think qualification is a way for us as people, humans, communication, to communicate with other humans about past experience.
Hmm.
It is one form of communication that is typically quite fast
Yeah.
because you can look or ask and say, "Are you qualified?" And with the answer, yes, brings assumptions. However, the effectiveness of that qualification and the effectiveness of your behaviors are still being judged after that. So the communication of your effectiveness as a practitioner is still being judged after you've said, yes, I'm qualified. But it's an initial communication to other people to say, I have lots of experience doing this thing in those ways because I passed this qualification test and assessment. Potentially, depending on the profession, I also do updating stuff, so professional development to maintain my qualification, depending on the
Yeah.
profession. um, So I would say the qualification is a quick, dirty, easy way to communicate past experience, but there are other ways to do it as well, such as testimonials. Testimonials aren't as quick and easy from the coaches in air brackets there, in that from the coaches side, because it's not them. They don't have the persuasive impact that the friend talking to the friend has as a referral. But the
Mm.
referral could actually hold more weight than the qualification through communication.
Yeah.
And so for me, qualification is one way we communicate past experience. That is it. I don't think it does much more than that.
Yeah. It is just a proof, isn't it? It's a this person knows these things about this thing, and that's how that works, and that's about it.
I don't think it certifies competence.
No, I know certified coaches and certified coach practitioners who are not competent.
Coaching is also, it's easier to become a qualified, certified coach than it is a teacher. You look at a teacher, you need a QTS, you need all the
Yeah.
DBS and safeguarding and the barring lists, plus you need to have certain amounts of experience. So the qualification process to become a teacher is far more rigid than a coach. Like I say, you can do a weekend course in any sport and call yourself a coach, or you could just put coach in your profile online and now you're a coach.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's why I think coach should be um, reclaimed as a word in society as a profession. It's what my head of course has been doing basically his entire life since he started
Mm.
coaching. So that's like 40, 50 years, and people have been doing it since the early 1900s. They're trying to like reclaim the word coach. And I would love to be part of that argument. I still technically am, but I don't think I'm going to make much of a impact at the moment. I don't have enough sway, especially
Yes.
with everyone online saying, "Oh, I coach this, I coach that." Professional athletes are now coaching community athletes. Okay, okay, yeah, you're coaching, but you're not a coach. You have a qualification, great, you're still not a coach. Well, okay, you are a coach. Again, this is where I'm exploring solutions rather than giving answers. You are a coach by some definition, but not a good coach
Mm.
or an effective coach.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is there anything else you wanna mention? You wanna discuss because this conversation could span multiple
Oh,
multiple
it
minutes
has to
further.
span multiple because I can't. There is too many ways I wish to go.
So, is there
There are so.
anything in specific that you're like, I want to dive in here a little bit more? Or are we closing it?
Let's close it there because I think it feels good to close there because it will open up more and these would be good other episodes.
Sounds good, and I'm sure there will be further conversation on LinkedIn.
Oh yeah.
So, and of course, as always, if anyone wants to disagree with us, let us know.
Yeah.
Speak to you all maybe next week.
Bye.